It was a very odd request, but one that I do believe was made in good faith. So, beforehand, my songs were always written from personal experience. Songs like The Writing on the Wall or I Should Know Better. I use social media to promote my music. I think that's what you have to do nowadays as an artist. But also social media is this amazing levelling of the playing field. Like, no longer do you need a huge budget or a record label behind you. An ordinary person can show up, be consistent, make content, trigger the algorithm, and eventually build an audience and become self-sufficient. That's definitely my goal. It was on a video promoting the song I Should Know Better that I got this random comment: "Vince, you should write about the Irish Famine." And it made me chuckle, and it was a bit odd. But, you know, I didn't need to pay it too much attention. That was until other people clearly saw it and decided to join in. And I ended up with like 6 or 7 comments on this reel, all requesting a song about the Irish Famine. Now, those commenters probably weren't sincere, but I did interact with the original commenter, and I think he was being genuine. I figured at least I could look into it. Like, I'll admit that my knowledge of the Irish Famine at that point was pretty limited. I was quite ignorant to the whole thing. And so I just go on Wikipedia, right, and I read the summary. And what really struck me was how historically significant the famine was. I should acknowledge over 1 million people died during this time. A lot of people fled the country as well. And, of course, as well as the famine, you have to acknowledge that Ireland was part of the United Kingdom. And the Brits didn't treat the Irish that great. It was the lead up to independence, though, that really struck me. I could almost imagine, like, the cries of revolution in the air. That was, like, this image that struck me. Those opening lines. Tensions were already rising. The Republicans wanted their say. Came to me very quickly, along with that initial chord progression. It's a C to a G, but it's played with a capo on the 2nd fret, so it'd be a D to an A. I dare say the song came together quite quickly. Now, I mentioned reading the summary on Wikipedia. Please don't assume that was my only point of reference. I did Google it and read up a couple of things and try to, like, you know, cite sources and stuff. At the same time, though, I will admit, like, I'm not trying to write an encyclopedia about the Irish Famine. I understand some people will wish that I went further. Some people may wish I hadn't approached the topic at all. But ultimately, it's a 2-minute indie folk song about this topic. It's a brief overview. I believe it is factually accurate. Again, even if it doesn't go quite as deep as some might like. And yeah, I feel pretty confident that I approached it in the right way, or at least in as good a way as you can. Anything to do with the actual reaction to the song we'll talk about in next week's video when we talk about the journey and, you know, how close I am to achieving my goal. But in terms of the Irish Famine, like I said, the song came together pretty quickly. I remember, and it was one thing that actually gave me some confidence in a weird way, because I will admit I don't have the greatest ear in the world, for example. And sometimes I do have a bit of a hard time trying to figure out what are, like, the perfect chords to go with a melody I've got. But this one, like I said, it came together pretty quickly and made me feel pretty good about my own musicianship. Again, I'm not claiming it's this astonishingly, like, complex song. It's not. I guess, like the approach to the subject matter, the songwriting itself is relatively simple. But actually, that's something I would argue, or something I would say about History Book in general, like the EP. A lot of it is basic, foundational songwriting formulas. And yet, I think I've utilised those formulas and those structures and those chord progressions and stuff very, very well. The verses of Spirit of London are just a 1-4-5, right? Like, I think I think History Book does something that maybe my previous music had been missing, which was just to go to basics, like just yeah, and do that very, very well. And I think there's a quality of execution here. I haven't phrased that very well, but that works essentially. I do look back on previous songs and think like, yeah, the idea is good or the song is good or whatever, but maybe the execution wasn't quite perfect. I think here with History Book, I have very successfully like translated what was in my head onto a recording. And in my opinion, Irish Famine did that very, very successfully. Like from a songwriting and from a production standpoint, I think it does successfully, it not just successfully achieve what I had in my head, it kind of surpasses it. Because of course, well, I say of course, I initially envisioned the song like a Bob Dylan song, like just acoustic guitar and vocals. I wasn't even thinking percussion or anything like that. And then when I took it to the studio and showed it to Henry, he actually suggested it should be a full band mix. I knew Henry could play violin, so then that occurred to me, like, oh, that would sound cool. And then he turned around and said he could play mandolin, which was great. So in a way, with the arrangement, we could give it a bit of an Irish bent and maybe pay tribute to Irish music. Again, whether that's the right way to go about it or not is up to you, but I definitely know that I did it from a place of a tribute and from a place of goodwill, and that's all I can sleep soundly on that, right? When I put the song up on Instagram, right, the song that I'd written, the initial reaction, like from my followers and etc., were actually very good. Like people seemed to really dig the song. And, you know, when it came to making History Book an actual EP, sure, like maybe there was a brief period where I contemplated whether I should. But I don't know, I liked the song enough. I was prepared for whatever the discourse might entail. And again, I'll talk about that more in next week's video. But I was really happy with this song. It did give me more confidence in my abilities as a musician. It felt like an evolution. It felt like I was getting better at this skill, right, that I'm trying to develop. And ultimately, while it's not the most deep or the most complex song in the world, I think it very, very successfully executes some very like standard and classic songwriting formulas, yeah, and sort of ways of writing. That is essentially how I wrote The Irish Famine. It is track 4. It is track 4 off of History Book. I didn't think to grab a CD when I hit record, but I do have some CDs available. Maybe I'll put a little picture up on the screen. And I will be selling them at future gigs, and hopefully I'll do like an online thing on Bandcamp. That's something to look into. If you've enjoyed this video and you haven't heard the song yet, then you know what to do next. There is a lyric video here on YouTube, or you can listen to it on any of the streaming sites. Next month will be the final song, which is called Let Nature Take Its Course. So stick around for that. And indeed, in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed what you heard today, and I very much hope to see you in another video.